So when flipping and pitching around shallow cover, there are several ways to catch those fish. I don't care if you're talking about wood, like laydowns or standing timber, docks, grass, shoreline vegetation. There are many different places to go when you're fishing down the bank to catch fish. But when you're flipping and pitching, there's really only two possible ways to catch those fish. There's a Texas rig with some kind of creature bait or craw or beaver style lure, and then there's a jig. Or at least that's what I thought. In this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to fish an OG lure in the bass fishing community that I think has been left by the wayside for a long time. What is that? That is the tube. Let's talk about it. Well, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to TRF. My channel, as always, is here to help you guys become better bass anglers, and today we're going to talk about a lure that I really, like I talked about a second ago, feel like not a whole lot of people throw anymore, including myself. 2020 has been a year, for me at least, of exploring fishing techniques that I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in before, and revisiting old fishing lures and techniques that I didn't really try in a long time, and one of those is the tube. You guys may remember my video back in the day, and if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you watch it. I'll leave it linked below. It is the Fishing with Clay Dyer video I did on Lake Fork. If you guys are unfamiliar with Clay Dyer, he is one of my heroes in the fishing world. He was born with no arms and no legs and only part of an arm, and he has made his way up to professional bass fishing. It blows my mind every time I get to hang out with him and see him do what he does, because it doesn't make any sense. To be able to fish and actually catch fish in the physical condition that he is in is just amazing, and he is an inspiration to me. But on that day of fishing with him, I was flipping around a jig around some wood, and I caught the exact same number of fish as he did, flipping around a Texas rig tube just like this one. And so I kind of brushed it off for the last 2 years or so and didn't really think a whole lot about it. I was like, oh cool, Clay's fishing a tube. Until I was hanging out with MLF Pro Todd Faircloth. And the first lure that he rigged up for flipping shallow laydown logs was a Texas rig tube. And I asked him, Todd, why do you do that? And he said, well, first off, he has confidence in it. So of course, if you have confidence in a lure, you're gonna put it in the right places to catch fish. And in my experience, if a fish sees something in its face, it's probably gonna eat it. But he also said that a lot of people do not throw the tube. They throw your standard, Texas rig rage craws, your standard, flipping jigs, swim jigs around shallow cover. And the tube just has a completely different action as it falls and as you hop it across the bottom. And so that's the purpose of this video. I'm gonna talk about the Texas rig tube, why I throw it, why I think it's a good downsized presentation to catch maybe those more finicky style bass that are sucking tight to cover. And of course, we're going to talk about the gear that I'm throwing it on, and then see a bunch of cool fish catches from today's action. So the tube that I'm using is the Strike King 3.5-inch coffee tube. It says death before decaf, or la mort avant la dica. La mort avant la dica. Feel free to tear apart my Spanish. But if it's got Kevin and Denny Brower on the package, it's probably good. So a tube, in my mind, for so many years was relegated just to smallmouth fishing. I would put it on a smallmouth jig head, I would throw it out there on a deep rock pile or a grass line, and I would rip it out of that grass and catch smallmouth on it. I've caught a lot of smallmouth bass on tubes. And I never really thought of using a tube for largemouth until fishing with those two pros, and I was sure missing out. So what a tube is it is a hollow piece of soft plastic with a tentacle-like skirt here on the bottom. I don't know how long a tube's been around for, but I'm pretty sure it's been around for a long time. If a lot of the older buddies of mine that fish, no offense to them, but if the older buddies are using it and the younger people are not, it's probably more of an older generational type lure. And it's pretty dang simple. It's got a hollow core on the inside, with most tubes just being consistent thickness around the whole thing. And so as you can see, I'm squishing it here. And there's really only one way, in my experience, to rig this thing when it comes to Texas rigging, and that is with a smaller style hook. So you can find bigger flipping tubes that have a more thick, soft plastic portion right here for your hook to actually find more skin in, to have more of a hold in. But I prefer to throw the 3.5-inch because I just feel like it's a smaller presentation. So if you line it up with this Rage Craw, sure, it's not actually any shorter than the Rage Craw, not any smaller, but the way that it falls is a lot lot more finesse. The tentacles here, of course, they kind of like sit to the side or they kind of flail left and right, and they don't really give off action like a claw or like a creature bait does. It just kind of glides. That's why I love the tube, because it has an action unlike anything else. It's very hard to get a tube to sit on the bottom like this and kind of hop next to the cover like a jig or a creature bait does. It just glides. So when you hop it off the bottom, it's kind of going to glide in like a circle or an S motion down to the bottom, and I think that gets those fish to bite, especially when you kind of shake the tube and it causes those tentacles to flail around. Now when it comes to the setup of this tube, I like to throw anywhere from 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. Today I'm throwing 20 pound because I'm flipping it in some pretty heavy wood. I've got, of course, a bobber stopper on there. I've got a 1/8 ounce tungsten weight. I'll explain more about that in a second. And then I've got a 3/0 wide gap hook. The hook is very, very important when fishing a tube, because unlike a creature bait or a craw, where you have more of a flat, thicker, soft plastic where it pokes through, you have a whole lot of clearance for that hook to go in the fish's mouth. With the tube, you have to go through usually a thicker soft plastic, and so you have to find the widest small wide gap hook possible. So here I have a 3/0 wide gap hook. It's actually a little bit bent out right now. Let me bend that hook back in. And it's really important to have the widest gap possible. So I'm gonna poke it in just like I do right there with regular Texas rig. Now you can feel it's not actually hooking to anything on the inside because it's hollow. So not that it really matters, just kind of wanted to point that out. But poke it in, like I always say, about 1/4 inch, then spin it around, and you can actually poke the eye all the way through just like that, to where the eye of the hook is now inside the hollow part of the tube. I'm gonna line it up to where the shank starts to bend right there toward the point. I'm gonna line up the tube right there, and as you can see, a 3/0 fits this 3.5 inch tube perfectly. Hopefully y'all can see that on my hand right there. And I'm gonna grab it like this and force it right on the end, through the end of the tube, poke it on back through, put the bobber stopper down, and you have yourself a Texas rigged tube. Now the reason why I use a slightly lighter weight is because I want that bait to glide. The heavier weight you use on your Texas rig tube, of course, the more it'll fall nose down. But I've just found that those fish that see a whole lot of jigs and creature baits flipped into their laydowns, into their homes, want to see something a little bit different. And that is where the combo comes into play. Because I'm flipping a pretty dang light lure, it's really not all that heavy, probably maybe 3/8 ounce. I like to use a 7 foot or 7'2" medium heavy. And then here I have the Lew's Super Duty with 20 pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon. Really the rod is important though, because when you are flipping a lighter lure, it is really hard to get your release point right on your bait caster or even your spinning rod than it is on a heavier one. Flipping heavier lures, I have a lot easier time with placing my lure exactly where I want it to go. That's why I can skip and flip docks with a jig like this one right here, you know, 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, with a 7'4" rod, as I like to use. With a tube, I wouldn't really get the accuracy that I wanted, and so I use a 7 foot or 7'2". If you're not fishing really, really heavy cover and you have no need to winch those fish out, I would drop down to like a 6'6" or 6'8" medium heavy, because you just want to be as accurate as possible, especially when presenting this thing in a very subtle, quiet motion. So that is all that I got for you guys when it comes to rigging the tube and the combo that I use. As always, it'll be linked below in the product description. Make sure you guys are shopping for your tackle down there by clicking through those links. It helps me out a ton. But let's hop on the front deck, show you guys how I'm flipping this thing, what type of cover I'm looking for, and of course, some great fish catches. I think I caught 10 fish or so today, so we'll see you guys on the front deck. Hold up, folks, hold up. One thing that I forgot to do is tell you guys that I like to dip my tail sometimes on my tube in some JJ's Magic. This here is the one that Fluke Master talks about. In my experience, it's the best dip for soft plastics. It holds its color the longest. Sure as heck holds its smell and its scent the longest. I'm not a big believer in scent. I really think the color is what triggers those fish to bite. But as you can see by all these tubes here, I'm dipping, I don't know, 1/2 to 3/4 of the tentacles in that stuff right there. So of course you don't have to do that, but that's just one thing that I like to do to ensure myself more bites, especially in a little bit dirtier water. Clear water, probably not the best to do that. That is more of a dirty water sort of thing. So let's get back up there. So when fishing the tube in a flipping scenario like this, I'm basically gonna flip or cast the tube right up to the structure, let it fall, of course, on a slack line, peel out some line, let it fall. Once it's at the bottom, click my reel down. And usually when I'm flipping, I like to imply kind of bigger hops like that, or kind of hops off the bottom. With a tube though, you don't actually have to give it that much movement to make the little tentacles there on the tube actually have some action. So with a tube, I more kind of imply little tiny hops like this that allows that skirt on that tube, if that's what you want to call it, to you know, move around and cause some ruckus down there and entice those bass to eat. So like I said, it's mostly not hops. You'll catch me sometimes kind of falling back into those old ways, but I found the best way to get bites is to kind of lightly shake, honestly, lightly shake the slack in your line, much like you would a drop shot, that allows this lure to have some crazy good action down there. Got him. There's one right there. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. Get him in here. Yes, let's go. Oh, he came off. He came off. Chill. Chill. Let's go. On the dang tuber. Thank you, buddy. Gave that tube a little flip in that, I don't know, whatever you call this, lay down smorgasbord of branches right on the edge here. And so I caught one early on. I have a feeling there's going to be more. Hopefully, you guys see more fish catches as we keep going on this. But felt the bite. He dropped it. I let it sit in there. Hopped it again. He got it again. Yes. This right here is where power poles are very crucial, because power poles are down back there. I'm able to pick apart this entire area without spooking the fish. So I literally drifted in, didn't even use my trolling motor, drifted in, power pull down, and that fish was right here. And I feel like if I had used my trolling motor at all to adjust the boat, that fish would not have bit. There's one. Get him out of here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's go. I knew there'd be another one. Heck yeah. On the tube. Look at that. I got him. Roof of the mouth. Beautiful. Thank you, buddy. Don't go telling your friends about me, please. I want to kind of stay low key. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I know there are so many more fish on this laydown. It's just too big, too much cover for there not to be like 6 or 7 fish here. But I've never really had much luck with catching like multiple fish off of, you know, pieces of cover besides docks. Docks I feel like I can catch multiple fish off of, but I've had trouble with wood. I have heard though, like pro anglers talk about catching a few, leaving for a few hours, then coming back and catching more. I could see that being a thing. So I may come back here after a few hours and make a few more flips. Let me also flip backwards at this one. Get a different angle. Maybe the fish don't want to see the same thing from the same angle. Or I can just get stuck. There we go. That would be good too. There's one. That right there is why it's important to make long flips as well, because that's a very obvious piece of structure over there. And because I made a long cast at that thing, felt the bite and got him. This tube here is now going on 3 fish, I believe. So they're relatively durable, I'd say. Let's get another one. Got him. There we go. That is number 2 out of that laydown. Oh, I lost the tube. Got 3 fish. I'll take it. That right there, it's a chunky fish. Look at that thing. That's gorgeous. Not a big one, but definitely a beautiful specimen. That's awesome. That is awesome. That's 2 fish out of that. Let's get my tube back. Gosh, got him. No way. Another one out of that brush pile. My rod, sorry, is stuck on my camera cord. Wow. There are more fish on this thing. On my way back out, made another flip to the same area I caught fish number 2, I think, or 3. And got him. That's awesome. All right. Well, first off, I need to fix this. That can't happen. I keep getting my rod butt stuck in this cord. And second off, there's a little tip for you. Come back through cover that you already fished, because there's probably more fish there. Gosh, dang it. Stole my tube. Stole my tube, didn't he? Yes, he did. Stole the whole thing. What's interesting is that every single one of these fish today has not been on the inside thickest part of it. They've been on the outside edges, which is actually pretty nice. I would prefer that to be the case, but that's rarely the case, because usually fish are on that inside, you know, biggest root possible. For some reason, not today. There he is. There he is. That's a nicer one. That's a nicer one. Could it be the same fish? I don't know, but it's nicer. Power pull down. And bring him in here. Yeah, there we go. There's finally a fish around 2 pounds. Skinnier. I thought his head was gonna show how big his body was, but it wasn't. Still gorgeous though. Beautiful Texas bass. Look at that thing. Man, this is fun. Like, I really don't think many people throw the tube, y'all. It's a little finesse presentation. Another less is more situation. That rhymed. And let me tell you what, folks, it gives you some gosh dang bass fishing stimulation. And there's one. And I really do have a sincere appreciation, with no stipulations, for each and every single bass from every nation. If you're not subscribed because of my poetry, get out of here. Subscribe. There's one. Oh, got him. There we go. Ha ha ha. Had to catch up to him there. You're not a bad one. You're not a bad one. Bring it in here. Yes. Another one on the tube. Moved our way up the river. Sorry if the lighting is bad. Let me check that real quick. It's not too bad. Got another one on the tube. This has been a fun day. I don't know if we're at 6 or 7 fish so far. Oh, I love having a fun day. Flipping for bass. Thanks, buddy. There's one. Got him. Oh my gosh. Holy cow, that was nuts. This dude went flying. What a fun time, y'all. The tube is one of those lures that I don't think many people throw anymore, including myself until a few weeks ago. And I am sure glad that I have started to throw this little juicy morsel right here. So if y'all enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. I'm gonna get back to fishing, hopefully catch a few more for you guys, and we'll see y'all next time on TRF.